I hope you can all see my screen. So welcome all for Platform API Center. Just bear in mind, please, this presentation is being recorded. So please mute yourself, as I said before. So yeah, so what have we done previously on our Platform APIs? Just a quick reminder. So last time we spoke about testing and integration. We spoke about Tenancy API. We spoke about the collaboration with Manager Tenancy project. We also spoke about the Contact Native API and Authorizer API. It's been really too busy week, to be honest, and the team has been smashing through the week throughout the sprint, and they've been really doing well. Okay.
Hi, that's me. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so one of the things we did in the last couple of weeks was so last time we talked about like building the Tenancy API, and we kind of did that a little bit in collaboration with Manager Tenancy as they had like a need for it. And so now we've actually gone and like integrated it into single view. So that means we've like added the code into the single view API so that Manager Tenancy can now go and develop the front end UI, which you can see a picture of the design there for. And they should just be able to go straight ahead and like search for tenancies from that API.
We've also been working on extracting council tax from Academy. So currently Academy contains data for housing benefits and council tax. We've got the endpoints done that retrieve housing and benefit data. They've been done for a while, but now we've started work on adding council tax data to the existing API. So we'll actually be able to return a list of all council tax payers, as well as search for individual people by their council tax ID. We've got the view record endpoint almost done. It's currently in review, so it should hopefully be merged in fairly soon. And then we're going to be working on a list endpoint so we can retrieve.
Hello, everyone. Here's an update on our vulnerabilities API. So good news, the production pipeline from Click to S3 has now been set up, and thanks to Dara for helping us out. This basically means that now on daily basis, Click generates a CSV file of vulnerabilities data that we've agreed with the data and insight team, and it pushes the file to S3. In S3, we kick basically our data pipeline, which inserts that data into our cloud Postgres database. Having the production pipeline ready is great because this means that the API is ready to be used. However, as we discussed with the data and insight team, we agreed that we will have to be more careful about how data is used. For these reasons, we realized that we'd actually need to have a workshop with relevant teams involved, where we are going to determine how the workflow of authorizing production access to our platform APIs would work. This doesn't scope only to the vulnerabilities API, but rather to all of our platform APIs. And continuing on from here, we've actually realized, next slide, please, Rashmi. We've actually realized we need 2 workshops to be held with information management, security, and data and insight teams involved. What we want to get out of those meetings is basically we want to understand clearly how the business workflow for authorizing access to an API would work. This basically means who is going to be the person authorizing that access and essentially generating the token and passing it to the requester. And what kind of information would the person need in order to make a decision of whether they should authorize access or not. Another thing we want to find out is basically we want to have a clear definition of how data contracts are going to look. As we've previously mentioned in other show and tells, data contracts would essentially be like terms and conditions that ones would need to agree to prior to getting access to an API. But what we would like to find out is it going to be a framework that's just going to be fit for all platform APIs, or is it going to be individually defined data contracts per API, or perhaps a hybrid between both? We don't know yet. So once we have those meetings, we're going to update you. But we do know that once we do find out how those workflows are going to work, we need to create implementation tasks so we can inbuild those into the API hub.
So as Mirella mentioned, API Hub. So what is API Hub? API Hub is a one-stop shop for all the APIs, and we offer that as a front-facing application. And this is how we offer our APIs out for people to consume them. It can be internal or external developers. we need to refresh a hub to take account of new new APIs and new authorizer to make it more user friendly, to be honest. And that's the task that we are currently concentrating on. We also had a workshop, really interesting workshop, to work out what are improvements we would like to make and what are the needs and what should be the next step going forward. So what we have recognized is we need to map out the user journeys. I mean, developers can map out, but obviously some bits we sometimes forget, or uh, we do not put it in our well-defined user journey, and that's why we need more refined workshop based on that. And this is what we had come up. So the version 2 has too many things to talk about and want to work on. So we spoke about the setting the token TTL per API. We also spoke about token to be displayed only once and request for a new one if lost. Obviously, that's very important in terms of security. We were discussing about the links between the API lists and the respective documentation. How do we maintain that going forward? And how do we make sure that we include the response object in documentation, tidying up the search module? Obviously, we are using very fancy technology in terms of making it as friendly as possible, but we need to make sure we are also aware that there are a few things that needs to be worked on, as that's the front portal for all the APIs going forward. So, Mavella?
Oh, I think this is me.
Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, so we've finished working on this little app to like authorize the tokens. So just to explain a bit about what that is, the API hub, which Rashmi's just talked about, eventually you'll be able to like go onto that and request a token for one of our APIs. And then when you make requests to the API to like get data or like change data, you have to include that token in the request. And then this authorizer function will look at the token and make sure that it's valid, and also that you've got the correct permissions to see that API. And we've done it as a separate app to the APIs themselves so that it can be reused across all of them, which is really good. And we've also now like integrated it into all of the APIs as well. So anybody who wants to use it from now on will have to use like the token-based authentication instead of the API keys. And this is really good because it's going to give us a lot more control over like what data people can see and like whether they can only see it or update it and things.
And another API we've been working on is the token administration API. It's actually quite an important one. This is because, as Emma mentioned, we have now integrated all of our platform APIs with the new Lambda authorizer. We're expecting that we're going to integrate further APIs as well. And what that means is that over time, we're going to be generating a lot of tokens. So maintaining them and managing them can easily get out of hand. So we realized that, so we wanted to start building an API where we can wrap around functionality rather than having to manually go into a database and update values. What this new API does is basically we have two new endpoints. We have an endpoint that's going to list all token data that we have in our databases and be able to filter them based on whether they are active or not. Another thing we discussed is that we never want to actually delete tokens for audit purposes, even if one is not used. However, we would like to be able to revoke them. So what we did is we added a second endpoint where you'd basically be able to update a token to inactive, which essentially means revoked, and it cannot be used to provide access, or switch it back to active if need be. In the future, this API is going to be integrated into the new admin component that will come with the new version of the API Hub. Back to Rashmi.
There you go. So in the end, I would like to speak about the roadmap. So obviously we are doing so many exciting things, but what's next? So for this month, we are quite ahead of our game, to be honest, what we initially planned for. So we discussed that we'll be working on the cautionary alerts integration, which is pretty much done. And then we are working on the council tax, as I mentioned before, and the API documentation and some bits of the data contracts. But next month is going to be very interesting because that's where we'll be focusing on the addresses API, and where we'll be working very closely with the data and insight team, and to make sure the requirements of what they have given in terms of making it completely independent from the current setup, and also incorporating some of the new iteration that will be very useful for the address API. We are going to be integrating the data contract into our API hub. We would like to see how do we start working on the electoral register API spike and understand how can we make sure that we use our data into our resident information API, higher level one, and we also will be working with the single view for display vulnerability data if it's required. So yeah, and then we obviously later in November, Jan, we would like to focus on documents and notes discovery and transaction account discovery, possibly. And there you go. And this is the end. Do you have any question, guys? So I can see. It's a good silence or bad silence? Any queries that you would like to ask us to the team?
Let's take it as a good silence and say that we've covered everything.
Yeah, looks like. Great. So yeah, okay, cool. Thank you very much for joining us for this Shrunchal, and we'll meet again in next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thanks,
good afternoon.
everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.